And joining us now from Las Cruces, New Mexico, is Senator Bernie Sanders. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the obvious question. There are a lot of Democratic officials and office holders concerned that the tone and tenor of this Democratic race have gotten so negative that it could cost Hillary Clinton, who is likely going to be the nominee, the general election, by convincing independents and progressives who support you that she is corrupt and that the only reason you're not going to get the nomination is because the fix is in. What do you tell those people when they call you and express this concern?
Nothing that I have, Jake, that's nothing that I have ever said. You know, the last I heard is that we are a democratic country and that elections are about vigorous debates over the issues. Secretary Clinton and I disagree. I think we should, on many issues, I think we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. I think we should join the rest of the industrialized world and have a Medicare for all health care program. I think we have got to have a tax on carbon if we're going to effectively deal with the crisis of climate change. She and I disagreed on the war in Iraq. Those are legitimate issues to debate. What we are trying to do is bring more people into the political process, including many, many independents, young people and working class people, and I think we have been doing that just fine. Well, and what the Democratic leadership has got to understand is that not all of my supporters go to these fancy fundraising dinners. They are working people who are hurting now, who want real change in the economy, and I hope the Democratic leadership understands. They've got to open up the process, bring those people in.
Take a look at what you said about pledged versus superdelegates when you were campaigning in Santa Fe, New Mexico on Friday.
Now, we have received up to now 46% of the pledged delegates. We have received all of 7% of the superdelegates.
Now, you were making a point about the superdelegates, but what you left out of that data is that while it's true you have roughly 46% of the pledged delegates, Secretary Clinton has roughly 54% of them. And what you've achieved is remarkable, and there's no one that disputes that. Yet at this hour, it seems unlikely that you'll actually achieve the majority of the pledged delegates. Can you see how that might leave the impression that? No,
I assume that most of the people who come to my rallies can do arithmetic. If I have 46%, she has 54%. The point that I was making is there's something absurd when I get 46% of the delegates that come from real contests, real elections, and 7% of the superdelegates. And the point that I made a few minutes after that is that some 400 of Hillary Clinton's superdelegates came on board her campaign before anybody else announced.
Absolutely true.
It was an anointment.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is bad for the process. It would seem to me that superdelegates want to see how the process unfolds. Who is the stronger candidate? As you well know, and disagree with me now if you want, but virtually every poll taken in the last 2 months has me doing better against Trump than Hillary Clinton.
Well, okay. One thing about that poll, a lot of experts I've talked to, political experts, including people who like you a lot, say that, first of all, you can't base an argument about what should happen in November based on polls in May. But beyond that, it's just empirically, you have not withstood the kind of decades-long beating that Hillary Clinton has, not to mention the year-long difficult coverage that Donald Trump has. Do you dispute that? You really think that the kind of coverage has been as piercing and as critical of you as it has been on the other two?
Hey, check out some of the TV ads that were run against me in 2006 when I ran for the United States Senate. Very ugly, very vicious, and you know, a lot of crap has been out there, dishonest stuff about me. I believe the reason, and I say this with all due respect to Secretary Clinton, I'm not saying she cannot beat Donald Trump. I think she can. I think it's a good chance she can. I am the stronger candidate because we appeal to independents, people who are not in love with either the Democratic or the Republican Party, often for very good reasons.
Right.
And the issues that we are talking about, income and wealth inequality, the influence of Wall Street, the fact that we are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all or paid family and medical leave, those are resonating among people who support me in a way that Secretary Clinton is not getting support.
Senator, so you're out on the trail every day talking about your goal, which remains to secure a majority of the pledged delegates. Should we assume that that means you believe the candidate who has the majority of pledged delegates by the end of this process should be the nominee?
This is what I believe. I believe if we, and look, I am good at arithmetic, and I understand that it is a very, very uphill fight to go from 46% where we are today to 50% in the 9 remaining contests. I got that. But the other point, and we're going to try, California obviously is the big race that remains. We think we have a chance to do very well in California and in New Jersey, etc. But what I also believe, it's incumbent upon some of these superdelegates, people who came on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race, to take an objective look at which candidate is stronger. And it's not just polls, Jake. Democrats and progressives win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when people are demoralized and don't come out to vote. Any objective assessment of our campaign versus Clinton's campaign, I think will conclude we have the energy, we have the excitement, we have the young people, we have the working people. We can drive a large voter turnout so that we not only win the White House, but we regain control of the Senate, do well in the House, and win governor's chairs up and down the line.
But with all due respect, sir, she has more votes than you, and she has more pledged delegates. She has more pledged delegates than you, and the question is just a simple yes or no. Should the candidate with the most pledged delegates at the end of the process, June 7th, after New Jersey and California, the last contests, should the person with the most pledged delegates be the Democratic nominee?
Well, I think if that was the only criteria, then you get rid of all of the superdelegates, which may not be a bad idea. But you do have superdelegates. You got 700 superdelegates. And I am not a great fan of superdelegates, but their job is to take an objective look at reality. And I think the reality is that we are the stronger candidate. So we will see what happens, Jake.
So you actually think, you think it would be okay for the pledged delegates, the majority of Democratic voters, to pick one candidate and then the superdelegates to actually go with a different candidate? You're not suggesting that.
Well, it's very funny. It's very funny that you asked me that question when you had 400 pledged delegates come on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race. That's called an anointment process. That's called the establishment talking. That's called the big money interests saying this is who we want to be president. We are where we are right now.
Yeah, and where we are
right now, Jake.
Right.
And where we are is we are fighting to win the pledged delegates. So before I can answer your question, let's see what's going to happen. But if you do have, if your argument is let's get rid of all the superdelegates, that may not be a bad idea.
Well, would you? Well,
but they are there, and I think.
So let's talk about that. Let's pursue that, because no matter what, whether you get the nomination or you don't, you're going to have a seat at the table when it comes to what is in the Democratic Party platform. You're going to have influence on what happens, no matter what, nominee or not. Should the party do away with superdelegates?
I think they should very much. I think we need a serious discussion about the role of superdelegates. Clearly, the current situation is undemocratic. It is ill-advised, and it needs to change. To what degree, I would like to see it change. We are talking about that right now. But the status quo clearly is not acceptable to me, and that has got to be changed. And I think what has got to happen at the platform is the Democratic platform, whether I'm the nominee or not, has got to stand up for the middle class and working class of this country, has got to be prepared to take on Wall Street and the greed of corporate America, the outrageous level of income and wealth inequality in this country, and make it clear to every middle class family in America, we are on the side of the middle class, the young people, the workers of this country, not Wall Street, not the greed of corporate America.
Last question, sir. Your campaign and many of your supporters have argued that Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair of the Democratic National Committee, has not been neutral in her position as chair. Your campaign manager, Jeff Weaver, in particular, has been very critical. She is being challenged right now in a primary by Tim Canova. He is a law professor who opposes the Pacific trade deal that you oppose. He supports you. He's already raised $1 million. You've been calling for a revolution. In Florida, are you with Wasserman Schultz, or are you with her opponent?
Well, clearly I favor her opponent. his views are much closer to mine than Wasserman Schultz's. And let me also say this, in all due respect to the current chairperson, if elected president, she would not be reappointed to be chair of the DNC.
Senator Bernie Sanders, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Good luck out there in the campaign trail.
Thank you.